I think most brands are not ready for this change. It is fundamentally different, the way we discover products. It's unprecedented how fast this is moving. I don't think most brands realize kind of how quickly this is happening. Brands lean into this early, think AI first, and then kind of as speedboats, they overtake the oil tankers of the sea. Most brands we meet are not really thinking about this in this way, and they're more like deer in headlight thinking about, what should I actually do?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the e-commerce Coffee Break podcast. What happens to your sales when shoppers start searching on ChatGPT instead of Google? Well, there's reasons to be worried because that's happening right now. Today we're talking about a shift that's changing everything for online sellers and DTC brands because AI isn't just helping people to search, it's now driving product discovery, turning chats into sales and kicking off what experts call agentic commerce. To learn more about this, I'm joined by Erik Wikander. He is the CEO and co-founder of Wilgot.ai. Erik is a top SEO and digital marketing expert, a growth leader, and a recognized voice in AI search. He's helped brands scale globally and is here to show us exactly what's coming next and how your brand can stay ahead. So let's get started. Erik, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Erik, AI is everywhere. How is AI changing the way people find products online?
So I think this started around 3 years ago when ChatGPT came and kind of showed everyone that there is a better way of finding information, that AI is actually a huge unlock in how we discover everything from products to services to content. And I think what we're going to see now in the next few months will be dramatically different from where we were before with information discovery. And I'm quite excited, but I also know that a lot of D2C brands are not really sure how this is going to impact their day-to-day lives and their business. But I would see that the silver lining is actually that this will enable users of search engines to find products that they were not able to find before. This will enable D2C brands to find customers that they weren't able to find before. But in that process, there will be a lot of change and a lot of disruption to a model which is built for the old world of search, which I call traditional Google or old Google. And I think most brands are not ready for this change because it is fundamentally different, the way we discover products and the implications for brands on how they need to think about search, about content, about optimizing for agentic search and also agentic commerce.
I think we're top on mind here, and that's really like when everyone marketing's manager's head, it should go on, is like what's happening there. Now, there's a lot of unknowns right now, and I think we want to start a little bit to unwrap these terms that are around this. So we're talking about agentic commerce, and we're talking about later on agentic product optimization. What does that mean? What does that stand for?
So agentic commerce, I think it's not talked about a lot in relation to the kind of how much this will change the market. And we tend to talk about these three eras of commerce where we used to started with marketplaces before there were physical stores. And that shift took maybe 30 years to go from a marketplace to a physical store because there were a lot of things that needed to happen. You needed railroads, highways, postal systems, all of these things. Next phase was e-commerce. And going from physical stores to e-commerce took about 10 years because we needed broadband, we needed payments, we needed a bunch of things that weren't there before. But with agentic commerce, what that means, and our definition of that, is an AI buying on your behalf. So essentially, you go into Google, you find the product you want, and the AI both does the discovery, but also the end-to-end purchase. So you actually never leave the AI search engine, whether it's Google or it's ChatGPT. And when we look at this shift and kind of how quickly this will happen, we need to look at the barriers like we did with the two previous kind of eras of commerce. And there aren't actually a lot of barriers to this shift because all of the technology is already there. So if you think about Google as an example, in May, they demoed a fully working agentic purchase flow in May. So this was more than 6 months ago that they showed that this is technically possible. So if we think about, we have all the enablers, we have payments, we have logistics, we have all of these things that's needed. The only thing is left is trust. So users of search engines need to trust the fact that the AI buys on your behalf. And I think from the countless examples we've seen over the last months is that people tend to trust the AI more than we think. So PayPal's CEO, he thinks that by 2030, we will have around 25% of all commerce through AI agents. I think he's wrong because I think it will be quicker. Because the moment customers realize that this is something that saves them time and money, they will lean in. Because we've seen that time and time again with AI. ChatGPT, as an example, came from nowhere, and now 10% of the world's population is using ChatGPT on a weekly basis. So in my book, that's mind blown. It's unprecedented how fast this is moving, and I don't think most brands realize kind of how quickly this is happening, or at least to some extent what to do. I think that's the main thing. So we've been working in this space for a while. We released our product called Agentic Product Optimization a while ago. So essentially, we couldn't find a good word for the product that we had created, which is essentially enriching product pages for AI search. So we discover how people search off your website, on your website, how people talk about your products, and then regenerate the product pages to match how people search in AI search engines, and then continuously on an ongoing basis monitoring those pages. So we take them from static to dynamic kind of learning agents, each of these pages.
I want to dive a little bit deeper this in a second. I think you highlighted the timeline. It's like normal commerce was like hundreds of years before we got to e-commerce, 10 years. And now within 2 years, we're coming from something completely new to something that people use a lot. And I heard the other week that somebody said this Q4, this holiday season, 60% of all people will use any kind of language model to search for gifts. And I think you're completely right. Next year, they will not only search for it, they will also check out through ChatGPT, for instance. And we see that ChatGPT OpenAI is working with, I think, Walmart, Etsy, Shopify to make it possible to check out directly. Now, going into what most people have done in the past, for our listeners that are working in marketing, they know search engine optimization. That was the big term to get ranked on Google, to get found on Google. This is changing, and that's what I think, what you just mentioned, is very interesting. So I want to have you this unwrapping it a little bit more, because the usual SEO process that was there for 20 years is not working anymore. So how do you provide the right information? And you said it's working in the background from your store, from your website, from wherever your content is, into, let's say, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. What is there? How does that work?
So if we kind of take a step back and think about e-commerce SEO, what it used to be, it was a lot about ensuring that your category pages are actually at the top for any given search. And if we think about the way people searched in the old Google, you had very simplistic terms. So you had blue shirt, or you had 1 to 2 words that you searched for. And what you then got as a user of a search engine, you got category pages from marketplaces and brands. And that was the game, like be on top for the category page. But all of that is officially irrelevant because the AI does not want category pages. They want products to surface. Because if you think about the matching between the intent from the user of someone searching from a blue shirt, they do not want category pages. They want relevant blue shirts. So in the old world, those results were not very personalized at all. So basically everyone got the same results. It was about ranking number 1. And then you did get a few users clicking through, and some of those bought your blue shirt if it was the right blue shirt for them. But in the new world, you would enter blue shirt. Even if you did enter the word blue shirt in Google, they will do something called a fan out search. So they will essentially do hundreds of searches on your behalf to find the perfect blue shirt for you. And this is already default in ChatGPT, because in ChatGPT, you don't ask ChatGPT for a blue shirt. You describe what you want in a conversational manner. So essentially, this is what we call conversational search, basically trying to find what you actually want, not trying to please the search engine. Because in the old world, you were trying to please the search engine. You knew you couldn't find any relevant results if you typed in, I would like a blue shirt with these attributes and these things. You wouldn't get anything. You would get category pages. So essentially, the old playbook is, we can kind of take that and throw it away. And we need to rethink how we do SEO for AI search engines, which is much more about relevance and much more about products rather than category pages. Which is ironic, because that's what D2C brands sell. I mean, they don't sell category pages. They sell products. So essentially, much more focus on products. And that's the new SEO. Coupled then with a few fundamental things. Like in the old world, you had technical SEO. You still have technical SEO. You have a new layer now, which is making sure that your store is discoverable by AI agents, and ensuring that your site is technically ready to kind of ensure that AI agents find your products and find your website. So that's kind of a new thing in technical SEO. But essentially, the old playbook goes away. And we now need to focus much more on the products, which, I mean, depending on your what you sell and to what markets and so on, this is not a very easy thing, because if you have more than 100 products and you sell to multiple markets, that's 100 times the number of markets that you sell to. Because essentially in the old world, it was also quite hard to address how people search in each market, in each language. So what you would then get is just a translation from one product page in one language to another. You would not consider the local way of searching, but because you couldn't. Like you would need to find someone locally to do the SEO adaptation. You would need someone locally to tailor it to the cultural context and so on. Because it was so expensive and cumbersome, it just didn't happen for most brands. So now, when we have AI kind of as an enabler to this shift, because AI is both the driver of the change with AI search engines, but it's also the enabler and the solution. So essentially, all D2C brands will need to deploy AI to counter this shift and keep up. Because now, with our product and other products, we can actually optimize each product based on how people search in any given market, based on the local search patterns, the cultural context, and all of the things that come with it. Because essentially, the way we search and what we want in each market is completely different. So one product in one market could be something completely different to another market. And that's why we need to consider the local relevance. My favorite example is we have one customers before they were using us, they were translating pages from Swedish to German. And in the Swedish PDP or the product page, they were talking about the Swedish archipelago, which is beautiful, 28,000 islands. Germany doesn't have an archipelago, I believe. I'm not sure, but I don't think they have. So essentially, whatever they translated was not relevant for the German market, but it was relevant for the Swedish audience. So essentially, it's a huge unlock for most brands that they can do this. But again, most brands we meet are not really thinking about this in this way, and they're more like deer in headlight, thinking about what should I actually do.
Let me cut in there. I think that's what we really want to talk here is for our listeners who are now obviously completely mind-boggled about what's happening there right now and with what kind of speed is happening. And I think the benefits will be, and I think you described this very nicely, the benefits will be huge for the seller. You basically now with ChatGPT, you have an assistant there who is promoting your business to every culture, social area, language, whatsoever in the background. Now, in the past, you had your online store. You're selling on Shopify or WooCommerce or whatever it is. How do I get information from me as a small seller into ChatGPT that ChatGPT will recommend my product out there? How does that work?
So essentially, it boils down to relevance. So you need to be the most relevant recommendation for the query that the user has. And that essentially boils down to what is your product? Who are you selling it to? What are the main benefits? What are the use cases of the product? All of these things that in the old world, you might write 2 lines about your product. So basically optimized for human conversion in the old world. So you had 2 lines of text on your product and you had a very big buy button and you tried to get all the humans to buy that. But in the new world, you have to optimize not for conversions, but for context, because the conversions will come if the AI agents find you. So essentially the context that the LLM needs, your products need to match whatever people are looking for. And that means you need to broaden kind of the potential audience and the potential use case for your product by describing it in a much more rich way. So essentially, you need to go much deeper into what customers actually think and appreciate about your product, unlocking kind of the use cases, the target audience, all of those things, and then describing it in a much more rich way. So one concrete example is we're working with a jewelry brand called Wellington. And when we did this for Australia, so we used our platform and the model, analyzed how people search, what customers thought about the product. The model found that in Australia, customers really appreciated that one particular ring could be engraved. And a lot of customers were using it for engraving. The model picked that up in the reviews. It was not something that was on the product page, but the model also fact-checked towards the image and saw that this ring can actually be engraved. And then it wrote a line of text on the engraving. It also added an FAQ question about engravings. And all of a sudden, you have a completely new target audience or potential audience for your ring, which wasn't there before. So that's a very tangible example of going from a very limited amount of text to broadening the idea about what your products could be for customers. And it needs to come from the voice of the customer. So essentially, everything around reviews and what people think about your brand will be even more important in this new world, to have kind of both the first party data about what customers think about your product, but also the external relevance where people are talking about your products, people are talking about your brand, PR, all of those things will be even more important.
I love this example. I mean, that's a task, that's a job for AI, and the outcomes are so surprising. It's like no one ever thought about this, and AI comes up with a complete new audience out there. That's awesome. What can brands do to make their product catalog or their content AI ready to get started?
So there are the kind of fundamental technical things, just making sure that your site is well and healthy and indexed. If you are on Shopify, I would just do a check to make sure that it is ready. You can do that, and then with Shopify, you're also already enrolled in the Agentic Commerce API. If you're not on Shopify, you need to ask your vendor to make sure that they are working on the Agentic Commerce API for the day that when that's launched. But the best thing you can do is essentially optimize your product pages, because that's where the kind of most of the outcome will come. If you make your product pages relevant for each audience in each market you operate in, then you are very well equipped to kind of be a part of this shift and this transition. So that's essentially the process I described, where with the help of AI, you analyze how people search, what people think about your product. What we do is we run that process fully automated and then regenerate the content on the product page to match how people search. And then continuously the model optimizes and learns how how the product is visible and how people interact and buy the product. So essentially, we take something from very static to a dynamic kind of self-learning product page.
Mm-hmm. So most of the information is already there. You just need to add more information that, like reviews, for instance, that the AI understands really what it is all about. Now, you gave a couple of examples with brands you're working with. Who's your perfect customer?
So we work mainly with D2C brands who have, regardless of category, all brands will be affected by this shift. So we're working with everything from women's dresses to watches to ski gear, for example. And in the most kind of technical products like ski gear, for example, there's a lot of things you need to know about the product before you buy it. And there's also a lot of potential in kind of elaborating on all the technical features. So that's a very good customer group for us. But also, even with dresses, you need to kind of elaborate on the fabric, the use cases, the occasions. So essentially, that's also a good use case for us, because in order to get found, you need to elaborate on all the aspects of your product. So I would say, and size-wise, I mean, we are working with quite small Shopify stores up to, I think the largest one is around 2 billion euros. So it's a big range, and the challenges are different for each of these brands. I think we of course, we like working with smaller brands because they are quite quick to jump on this. And I think there's also a massive opportunity for a smaller brand to take this opportunity and lean in, because we also speak to some of the biggest consumer brands in the world who you would think have a plan for this, but they don't. So essentially, they're now kind of scrambling to just make sense of what to do. But in a large organization like that, where there's one of them has hundreds of thousands of employees, there's a lot of people involved who need to realize that, one, this is happening, and two, get a plan in place that they can all act on. And that can take months. And in those months, we will see multiple D2C brands who lean into this early, think AI first, and then kind of as speedboats, they overtake the oil tankers of the sea.
That's the charm of being a small business. And I think a lot of our listeners are in this position. You need to be quick. You need to move quick now to jump on this opportunity. Now, let's talk about the onboarding process. How long does it take? What kind of steps are involved? How does it work?
Yeah, so the product is fully automated. So the onboarding is quite lean, especially if you're on Shopify. We just plug in your Shopify platform. But the most important thing is aligning on your brand. So we usually do like an hour workshop around the brand. So we have our own creative director. So we try to find the essence of the brand, also in the kind of relation to LLMs, because with LLMs, what you want to do is make sure that you're associating yourself with kind of the semantic meaning of your brand and what's important to your customers. So we try to kind of distill the brand and identify the key features that we want to reinforce through the communication on the product pages. So LLMs think semantically about this. So if you are a brand that has these unique things that customers appreciate about you, those are values we should reinforce. So that's kind of an important piece of the onboarding, just figuring out how we represent your brand through the copy that goes on the product pages. Because when I talked about this with people, most people associate this with like SEO content or stuff you would hide on the page, but it's actually the quality is so good that customers are using this in their CRM, and it's also improving conversion on the page prior to the previous version because the quality is so high. So essentially, it's not about tricking the LLM into recommending your products. It's much more about kind of drawing out the full potential of your products.
I think it's very important. And for our listeners out there, go on ChatGPT and search for your own brand and see what's coming back and see if it's aligned with you want to be out there with basically your credo or your brand image. I did it for the e-commerce coffee break podcast, and ChatGPT did a good job. It was almost scary how good it was. But that's the whole point of AI. You want to get better. The quality should be better, and you should learn from that. Now, how's your pricing working? How do you charge for your services?
We charge per product page that we generate and that we monitor. So it's a credits-based model that's aligned to kind of the value we deliver, because essentially the more pages we generate and optimize, the more revenue we will generate. So there's two ways of looking at the value. I mean, one, it's fully automated, so you no longer need people writing the product description. You no longer need an SEO agency optimizing the text. You no longer need a translation agency if you want to bring it to another market. So that's one lever. The other lever is the upside, of course, in terms of performance of the pages, where we have customers where AI mode is live. And we can see that it's a fundamental difference, the performance of pre-Wilgot and post-Wilgot. So essentially in Australia, for example, which is a known test market for Google, we can see that the unoptimized pages for our customers were going like this, going south, and then our pages were going like that. So the difference between the unoptimized and the optimized were 12 times in terms of visibility in search engines. So the impact is there, but I also think that for a D2C brand today, they may not see it in the numbers yet that this shift is happening, but I think the next months will be deterministic, because Google just released their Q3 earnings, and essentially AI mode usage has doubled in the last quarter. Mm-hmm. So we now have 75 million active. I think what they're doing now is like they're launching it in a few markets, seeing how it's working, and then they're going to scale up, because they have an incentive not to lose their position versus ChatGPT, which released GPT shopping, and they're going all in on kind of trying to take this from Google. But I think what's interesting is how most people associate AI search with ChatGPT, because they're the ones who they were first, and then everyone's like, oh, Google's going to be, they're out, and they're going down. But on the other hand, if you look at the data, in the last 3 years, when ChatGPT has gone from 0 to 10% of the world's population, Google has been doing fine, essentially not losing market share. What's happened is that the pie of search has grown. So people search more, which is interesting. And I also think that if you look at the experience of GPT shopping, I mean, OpenAI have done this for 3 years. Google have done this for 28 years with shopping. And they have so much data. They have so much knowledge. They invented this technology. They invented the T in GPT. So when I saw Google's AI mode in May, the demo, it was much closer to how I would want a kind of AI first discovery process for products, because I think what was nice is that they combined kind of the old world of Google with the AI assisted discovery. Essentially, you put in a search or a prompt, and it gave you a personalized grid, and it helped you also do the research. So kind of propose follow-up questions. Did you think maybe you need this thing for your bag, a travel lock or something? And then it guides you through the buyer journey, and all the entire time you have this personalized grid, which is products just based on your preferences and your data and so on. So the relevance is essentially much higher. I think what ChatGPT have shown is very early days, because essentially if you ask it for a recommendation about free products, it will give you free recommendations, but it won't guide you in the same kind of natural way that I think AI mode has done. So my bet is that Google will take a lot of the market share, maybe not back, because I still think ChatGPT, they have a loyal user base and so on, but I think they may be like the first ones to kind of nail the AI first discovery process. And of course, what we're seeing now is very early days. So we've only seen the beginning of what this is going to look like. So it's never going to be as bad as this release, which I think is also fascinating, because who knows what this will look like in 3 years, where what this can do to the whole experience.
I can't agree more than this. We are right in the middle of a revolution. It's not even an evolution. It's a revolution on how people shop, on how people search. Things that we have done for 20 years, Googling, I mean, that became a word. It's changing. I mean, if you go on Google, you have your AI summary, and I do actually not scroll down anymore if I'm in Google. I just go for the summary, and that normally 90% of the time is more than enough. So big changes in the market. Before we come to the end of our coffee break today, Erik, is there anything you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered yet?
I think depending on kind of the size of your business, I think it's quite important that you start communicating about this internally and talking about it, because I think that's one of the things we see, is that sometimes we meet larger organizations where we have this one person who's realized this, and they then need to convince everyone internally. Because essentially this is a major transformation that needs to happen. It's not only about kind of improving your product pages. It's about rethinking how we do marketing for e-commerce, because this is everything we've been talking about today. We talk a lot about organic, but it's also paid, because paid marketing in search is changing fundamentally. Essentially, Google were quite threatened in a way when ChatGPT came, and they have their $200 billion a year ad business that was kind of at risk. So they had to rethink how they do paid marketing inside the world of Google. They no longer can throw an ad in your face before you even know what to buy. So essentially, with this new AI Max that Google is coming with, you will have less ads in your grid, but the ads that are shown will be more relevant. And how they are relevant is context. So everything boils down to your own relevance of your products and your context. So essentially, you cannot just sit back and watch this change. You need to engage your entire team. If you're a small team, that's great, because then you have fewer people to make these decisions. But I think that the main thing not to do is just cross your fingers and hope this blows away, because it is a fundamental change.
No, absolutely. Now, again, bringing you back to, if you're a small seller, take the advantage of being small, about make fast decisions and go forward. Where can people go and find out more about you guys, and how can they get started?
So we're at Wilgot.ai with a W, and then I'm on LinkedIn, Erik with a K, Wikander with a W. And you can also email me at erik@wilgot.ai.
Cool. I will put the links in the show notes, as always, and you're just one click away. Erik, thanks so much. I think we can talk another 2 hours about this, but I'd rather have you back on the show in 3 months, and then by then there will be a million other changes. So I think this is a very interesting topic, and the speed that it is moving forward is just mind-boggling. So for our listeners, check the website out, get in touch with Erik, and I'm sure this will help you a lot to move into the future with your store. Thanks so much for your time today, Erik.
Thank you.